Okay. Good evening, and I apologize for just now getting to this video recording about APA, but we will try to get this done. My internet's going in and out, so just be patient and bear with me. I'm going to share my screen and we will get started. Um, First of all, this is a hot link and it takes you directly to the Gardner Webb Library Guides for APA. So I'm going to do this one time and show you exactly what it looks like when you land on the page. Make sure the first time you go here that you are clicking APA style so that you do get that. And scrolling on down through here, you'll find all kinds of things. The hanging indent, which you'll need to use when you get to your reference page, is here at the bottom. I'm not going to play that. Gives you information about how to quote or how to cite in-text citations and formatting issues, etc. So with that said, let's go back to the, I don't know where it went to, but I'm going to have to stop share and pull it up again. Okay. Generally speaking, the Gardner Webb Department of Education uses Times New Roman 12-point font. We've talked about the importance of using Microsoft Words. Be sure you have Grammarly disabled and Microsoft Copilot. Paragraphs are indented a half inch. The entire document is double spaced, and that's even including in your reference section and one space following punctuation. Capitalization gives us a little bit of an angst, I guess I would say, in 7th edition because 7th edition uses what's called down style, meaning that words are lowercase unless there is specific guidance to capitalize them. So we would most often say, of course, a person's name is a proper noun, it's capitalized. But if I'm saying Kathy Revis, math teacher at West Henderson High School, then I would lowercase math teacher because it is not a proper noun. But if I say that I'm a North Carolina Math 1 teacher, since NC Math 1 is a proper noun, the name of a course, specific course, then I would capitalize that. And the same follows if you just say Kathy Revis principal. In APA 7th edition, you refer to yourself in first person. That seems a little odd to do, I think, when you're writing in a formal writing style, which this is all formal writing. In formal writing, you don't use conjunctions, you write in a formal style. But you would say things like, I convened a focus group to look at da 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 da. Well, you say that instead of the candidate convened a focus group. Always refer to yourself in first person. Now, I kind of tell my doctoral students when they're writing, switch it around and say a focus group was convened to delve into why they felt like students with disabilities are underperforming in our school. And you just kind of change the sentence structure so that you're not writing and referring to yourself always in first person. You can really overuse that, so just keep that in mind. Again, using first person is not a personal narrative. This is formal writing, and try to always use active voice. Numbers 0 to 9 are written in word form. Single digit numbers, word form. And we don't ever begin or end a sentence using numerals. Now, once you get to two-digit numbers, 10 and above, you can put them in numeral form. So one example would be we have 32 students between the two classes. 32 being a double digit, you can use numerals. Here you would spell out the single digit 2 and two classes. 20% of our students, if you start with a numeral or need to start it with 20%, it should be spelled out always, even if it were a single digit number, single and double digits at the beginning of the sentence. And this is one that we will use frequently in your assignment one. Our state EOG math scores dropped by 10 percentage points from the previous year. Notice you're using a comparison of percentage points. You don't just say 10%. Our EOG math scores dropped by 10%. You can calculate a percent of increase and decrease, but you're going to get in some mathematical calculations that you really don't need to get into. You're just looking at your overall percentage points and you're describing a percentage point decrease or increase from the previous year. Acronyms, to establish an acronym, you need to use it with at least 3 times within the paper. And so if you wouldn't use it 3 times, then you don't abbreviate. So a good example would be in your introduction, of course, you don't put the name of Parsley Elementary School, but if you did, you would probably say that school's name several times. For the purposes of our work, it's always you use a pseudonym, if you will. For example, you may call it ABC Elementary School. And of course, at that point, you would not establish an acronym. But when you're looking at your test scores, the first time you write out the state end of grade test in science, then you would put the state end of grade written out, parentheses, EOG, EOG. And so you're going to establish that acronym because you're going to use that EOG over and over in your assignment one when you're doing the contrast and comparisons between different years and different courses or content areas. Preferred singular and plural spellings. And so on this side, those are the singular spellings of these words, and these are the plural spellings. As I've said before, we just use figures, and we just do that for simplicity for you so that you've only got to learn the formatting of a figure. And here's a hot link to give you more explanation in your guidelines. You always establish a figure one. You establish the number, and these run in sequential order. Then double space, title is in italics, left justified. Then you put your image, and then you can put a note if that image needs any explanation, like a legend or an explanation of how to read something in the image. Excuse me. So here's just an example. Of course, you would have your axis titled and figure one, sample figure title, keep them brief, and then your explanations there. And just any time you need to describe any content in the figure so that the reader can understand the format of your figure or what you're trying to prove, then you would put that in your note. You would not put in your note anything that you want the reader to glean or discern from the data that you are presenting. Now, if you put figures in the narrative, which we're encouraging you not to do that, we're encouraging you to put those in your appendices, then in the narrative you use what's called the sandwich method. You would provide some background and context for the figure. You still do that. And then you present the figure, and then you describe what you want the reader to gather or discern from the figure. You must learn how to do in-text citations, which you will really get into in assignment 3. But you do have some in-text citations in assignment 1 where you are presenting data. You have to tell where those data sets can be found and where you're pulling that data from. So If you're using quotes, then you have to use a quote and quoted text. And so you always mark them with quotation marks and you include an in-text citation with a page number. For example, you would use Smith, comma, author, date, and a page number. If you use long quotes of 40 words or more, then you bring that in and use block quote format, which you're indenting both sides and you are putting it in block quote. You still have to cite it with a page number, and we discourage you from using quotes. What we want you to try to do is paraphrase and summarize. Now, when you paraphrase and summarize, and this is a higher order thinking skill, it's not easy, but you just have to practice it. You are still having to include an in-text citation because your paraphrased words or summarized words come from an author and you have to cite that. So, for example, you would cite Davis, author, date. Author, date. If there are two authors, it's joined by a semicolon. So, in-text citations in APA format, again, a hot link there for all kinds of citations. Um, you always use author's last name only. You don't say Kathy Revis. You just do Revis, comma, year. Um, and of course, if it's a direct quote, you have to include the page numbers. There are two types of in-text citations. You can use the parenthetical, which typically comes at the end of the sentence. If you attend an online Zoom sessions, you will increase the likelihood of doing better in class. That's from Stedman, 2025. Author's last name, comma, date with parentheses. And note the period from your sentence always comes after that parenthetical. You can also do a narrative citation. This typically begins at the beginning of a sentence. Stedman, author, parentheses, date, decided that if you attend online Zoom sessions, you will increase the likelihood of doing better in class. It does not matter if you want to use a parenthetical or a narrative. A lot of it just has to do with the structure of your sentence. You still always have to cite it and use author and date. Now, for in-text citations for multiple authors, if it's one or two authors, one author, the parenthetical is coming at the end of your sentence, would be parentheses, Luna, comma, date. In the narrative, Luna, then parentheses, date. If it's two or more authors, as a parenthetical, you can use the ampersand. That's coming at the end of the sentence. But if you're using it in narrative form, in formal writing, you would not use an ampersand sentence, symbol. You use the word and. But if it's three or more, you use et al. Et al is an abbreviation, a Latin abbreviation for and others. And there's the way you would do it in a parenthetical or within your sentence structure. Now you have to know how to cite references. For every in-text citation, you have to have a reference. So what we have to do is know how to do references. Again, this link, hot link, will take you to all kinds of references. We stay pretty simple here. We are going to look at typically how to reference journals or whole books. But again, you have to learn how to do that. If you'll excuse me one moment, I'll shut my door. Okay. So a journal article, you notice it's double space. And this is in your reference section, and you have to have them your author's alphabetical by the leading author's last name. in your reference section. So I can look right quickly and see, excuse me, I can look right quickly and see that this is a journal article. And I want you to notice a couple things. First of all, it's double spaced. Secondly, the second line of the reference has a hanging indent. It comes in 5 spaces. There is a video on that landing page for the library guides that I gave you in the first slide that will tell you how to do your settings so you can get that hanging indent. Notice a couple more things here. This is the title of my journal article. Notice only the first word is of the title is capitalized, or after a conjunction of a semicolon or colon, the first word, or proper nouns. Everything else is lowercase in that title. This is the title of my journal, and these would be the journal numbers and volume and your page numbers. If it has a DOI, you have to put it in there. Okay? If it's a whole book, again, couple things. Everything is double spaced, hanging indent on second and subsequent lines. I know this is from a book. And the way I know it is because books are always in italics. The first word is capitalized. After this conjunction is capitalized, but nothing else is capitalized. And of course, you have to give the publisher, and that's it for your books. And if you found it online, your DOI. And here's how you would do a web page with an individual authors. Many web pages don't have individual authors, so you'll have to go to that the library web page and find out how to do a reference for all, and it gives you all kinds of examples. And again, I know this is the title of my article, and it tells me where it's from, and it's got a long DOI. So sometimes you have this joining DOI link because you can't break that link. And so your reference section kind of looks like this. You notice it's all double space. And the way I can tell the beginning and ending of one reference from another is because you always left justify your entries. There's the video. I'm not going to go through it. And you'll just need to understand how to do that for your reference sections. Then you have your appendices. We are encouraging you to put all figures in your appendices. So each appendix entry has to have a call out in your narrative. So, an example, in examining the last 4 years of EOG data for our school, I've already established that acronym. I first looked at a side-by-side comparison of each grade level for EOG reading. See Appendix A. So I established what I'm looking at. I've referenced or called out Appendix A, and then I'm going to continue my narrative describing what I want the reader to discern from the data that's presented in Appendix A. You notice this is not capitalized. It's part of your sentence, but Appendix A is, and my period comes at the end. Your next appendix entry that you're going to call out would be Appendix B. And then here's your APH editing checklist. You've already got this. It contains much of the same information that I've just gone over. And that's the end of the show. Again, I hope that you can refer back to this. I don't want it to be scary to you. There are rules, but there are rules, and it's a pattern, but if you don't have something that follows that pattern, then you've got to go dig it out from those library guides. So I hope this helps. Again, if you have any questions, use your formatting guide, use your reference materials. Be sure you've exhausted all possibilities before you ask me how to cite something that's non-routine, because I've got to go back and look it up too. I can't keep all this in my mind. You can't either. That's why you have the editing checklist and your reference guides there from your library are very, very helpful. Okay, good luck in APA format.